many of the things that we talked about being significant in terms of determining the outcome of the game, we were able to get done. We needed to have an upswing in our run game. I thought we did that. Not to be confused with a finished product. We still have a ways to go there. But there were some tremendous improvements in that area.
Hi everybody, I'm Missi Matthews. Welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. The 4M's back together once again to recap the Steelers' 27-3 win over Jacksonville on Sunday. It's a short week, so we're going to talk a little Thanksgiving and Ravens as well. Merril Hoge is back, not in an RV this time, so we will have him throughout the entire show. Hall of Famer Arthur Moats is here as well, and Matt Williamson from Steelers Nation Radio, kind enough to join us. So guys, you heard from Coach Tomlin there, an upswing in the run game, something he said he wanted the team to work on last week. The players bought in. Merril, was there improvement from what you saw in the Steelers run game yesterday?
A little bit. You know, actually, I was probably more troubled with the improvement. I mean, how they ran the ball against Jacksonville than the previous week. And here's why. I mean, I think when you don't run the ball, everyone wants to blame the offensive line. They always point there. And that's so unfair to the perimeter players that are a part of the running game. You know, your tight end and your wide receivers. You know, the tight end position has struggled with that. The wide receiver position, actually, Claypool has really struggled. You know, he missed a lot of running blocks. A lot of blocks in the Raven game, couple in Jacksonville. That would be the difference, you know. And if you clean those things up, because ultimately blocking comes down to this. The most important thing is you got to be a willing participant. You know, as long as you have that, man, you know, half of it is over. You know, is there techniques that can help you? Absolutely. But if they get better in the perimeter, they'll be just that much better. James Conner had one of his biggest runs by when he redirected. He's still, the timing that he has with counter stuff, he's getting ahead of the run. He's getting ahead of the blockers, even though he bailed himself out. You know, his timing and his pacing behind there is just not what it needs to be for that run to be effective. That's why I think they ran downhill at him. I think that's some of his better runs. I think he does that much better. And they got kind of away from those counters and those power type of runs. But I still think they can be a much better running team. They're going to have to be a better running team. That phase of it, the better that is, really the better they'll be as a whole offensively and harder to defend.
Moats, when you look at the numbers, they ran 27 times for 106 yards. What did you see in terms of, did they improve from the previous week to yesterday?
Yeah, well, first off, Merril does a great job in terms of when he talked about the schematic approach to running the ball and then just the desire. I mean, that shows up a lot of time with some of the people, you know, when it comes to blocking. I mean, you see guys that look like they want to do it, they're eager to do it, and then other guys are just, man, I have to do it by my job on this particular play. But as a whole, man, I do think that the running game was obviously better when you look at the numbers. I think the biggest difference to me was just James Conner. He did something that we hadn't seen him do in a while. He looked explosive. He looked elusive. Typically, when we see James, we look at him as a one-cut guy. He's never reversing field and things like that. But the two plays that stuck out to me the most was obviously the 17-yard gain on the reverse, where he reversed the field. But then also he had a screen pass where the D lineman misses him, and he has a burst where he looks like he shot out of a cannon. If James can continue to look like that, I think that does make up for a lot of the inefficiencies from a blocking standpoint, both in the interior line and on the perimeter. But if James doesn't continue to run like that with that physical, no-nonsense demeanor, that elusiveness, if he doesn't have that, then I think the offense goes back to struggling from a running game standpoint. And these next couple of games, I mean, at this part of the season, this is where you're really going to get tested to see, can we continue on this path of being one-dimensional, or is it going to come back to bite us in the butt?
Going along with everything that Arthur and Merril said, Matt, do you feel like not having Vance McDonald, who loves to block in terms of the run game for these past two games, has hurt the Steelers in this area?
Without question. I mean, to Merril's point, those peripheral blockers aren't holding up their end of the deal. And frankly, Eric Ebron's a wide receiver. He can go to the tight end room all he wants. He can have TE on his football card. It really doesn't matter. He's a big slot receiver. So when Gentry went out, they basically were playing without a true tight end. And McDonald does bring that. And one of the dilemmas is when they go to their heavier personnel, Hawkins, Gentry, Watt, those type of guys, well, they're taking far superior players off the field to do it. And to Merrill's point too, I really think you can get more out of Juju and Claypool to spring some longer runs as well. And the offensive line deserves a little bit of blame, but this is an offensive line that hasn't had, Ben hasn't been sacked in about 150 snaps and has been sacked twice in the last 5 games. I mean, they're built to pass block and they're excelling in that area.
So, Merril, what do you do to fix it if this is something you feel like the Steelers offense will need further down the road? Do you talk to the wide receivers, or what do you do?
Well, listen, you challenge everybody. All you got to do is watch tape. When you got a guy who's absolutely missing an assignment and standing around looking around while his guy's making a tackle, the evidence is right there. And if you're a true professional, and listen, Claypool's a young guy, so he's going to learn. You got to be accountable for that. I mean, the touchdowns are great and scoring touchdowns are great, but you got to be a team guy and do all the other things. So perimeter guys, you got to look, just watching the tape should be accountable enough. When you look at the running, that still comes down to really a lot of work, getting the timing down, getting the spacing down, trusting it, being patient with that. You just got to keep working on those things, and that will help you get better. And you could tell that they had worked harder at it. And the things we talk about are truly self-inflicted, and they can be corrected. Ebron gets beat a lot at the line of scrimmage, and you can still work on better technique. Ebron's a big guy, though. Matt said he's a slot receiver. There's no doubt that is the strength of Ebron, but that's giving you an excuse that you don't have to block. When in reality, in your meeting room, go, listen, you're a big man, and you need to be a better blocker. We need you to be a better blocker. Now, what they have done is they put 6 offensive linemen out there, to try to counter that, but. Now you completely neutralize an option for, I shouldn't say you neutralize for passing, because that's actually how you sneak in a quick one of those release the tackle eligible type of plays. But you lose an athlete, so there's ways to do it, but you got the people on the field to do it. That's my point. You just got to get them to be committed to it and be more diligent in those detailed things.
Arthur, as a former defender, our defense is picking up that this might be something they can exploit with the Steelers offense.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask Merril about that. In terms of the lack of running game, our offense has been really one-dimensional, but we've also seen this offense be successful implementing a little bit of a short to intermediate passing attack to essentially substitute the running game. Do you think that they can sustain that? I mean, because that's my biggest thing. I'm always thinking about that as a defender. How could you make this a weakness, and how do you exploit it? And obviously making the team one-dimensional, having to be pass first bodes extremely well for defenses. But when you're seeing Ben in this offense still be able to move the ball with this passing attack, does it take a little bit of that concern away from you?
Yeah, okay. Arthur, I'll throw this at you. Let's say we already know they're good at the perimeter with the bubble screens and the quick screens. Okay, you're great. You're a linebacker. You're playing this. Now we run power at you, and we're really good at. We run counter at you. We're really good at. We run outside zone, strong side, weak side, and we're really good at it. Okay.
Oh yeah.
We're good at all those things. Who do you want to defend? You want to defend that, or do you want to? Hey, listen, we're actually screwing up. We're really not. We don't block that well. We don't run that well, but we're good on the perimeter. What team do you want to face?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
You're like, I don't want to face a team that does it all. I want a team
absolutely.
that just does that other stuff. That's why. That's why I think this team has so much upside. They have not played their best football on either side of the ball yet, and they have so much room for growth and to get better. And I hope listen. I know they're talking about that as a coach. That's how you have to be getting there, keep them hungry from our perspective. Listen, guys, we're so much better than how we're playing, and we're still winning.
Yeah.
Imagine if we really play well and we put it all together, be unstoppable.
Well, and the thing that still gets me is, and Matt brought up this. They are great when it comes to protecting Ben in a pass standpoint. They excel at that. But when it comes to the running game, they're not getting the same type of movement, and it's not as good. And that's the part that typically those things don't go hand in hand from my experience.
Yeah. Well, now, just to add one thing. Sorry, Matt, really quick.
No.
The runner has been responsible for this too. I told you about
last week,
the counter stuff. That was all on James Conner. James Conner was ahead of blockers, and you can't do that when you're running counters and you're pulling people. So his timing and patience has to get better. It really wasn't the blocking, but they get blamed for it. So, it's a combination of growth there. If they all, really honed in on the details of things and keep working on that. And you could tell they'd worked on it a little bit. I mean, they'd worked on a lot. They got a little better. They got a lot of ways to go.
Yeah. Matt, sorry, what were you going to add?
A little more deep ball consistency in the passing game, too, could back people off the line of scrimmage. Claypool's obviously established himself as a big-time deep threat. I think Ben's coming around as a deep passer, and we know the protection's there.
Okay, guys, we're going to take
Absolutely.
a short break here on the Extra Point. When we return, we'll talk about the Steelers' record against rookie quarterbacks and the Steelers' defense. We'll be right back.
James Conner in the backfield on 1st and 10 from the 5. Conner trying to get to the outside. He does. Big run for Conner. Dishes out a little punishment at the 30-yard line. Third and 19 now for the Jaguars. Luton deep drop, steps up, uncorks the deep ball. It's intercepted for Edmonds. He's got his second of the day.
4 interceptions for the Steelers yesterday in Jacksonville. Terrell Edmonds had 2, Micah Fitzpatrick had 2, and the Steelers also added 2 sacks to that. The Steelers since 2004 are now 26-4 against rookie quarterbacks, welcoming back in our quadruple M panel today. I had to think about that one for a second. Guys, Coach Tomlin has said the unleashed mentality of the Steelers defense. It does not matter who they play. So, Merril, what did you see from the Steelers defense against Jacksonville?
Well, I'm telling you, they look like they were playing Peyton Manning. That's why I felt bad for the quarterback, because they gave all kinds of different looks, the way they pressured. I mean, they treated this, to me, it was like a warning shot to the rest of the people who are going to play him going forward. This is what we can do. We will implode this on you if we feel like there's a need for it. But listen, first of all, Jacksonville is not very dynamic as a passing attack. But the way they handled and the way they pressured them, they did a lot of it's a term called green dogging. Arthur Moats would know all about this. I'm a running back, and if I do a fake in the backfield and I'm supposed to release, but I stay inside, and Arthur's covering me, instead of covering me, he'd blitz. I'm telling you, I saw it 3 or 4 times in that game, and they got pressure, they got hits from doing that, and just the other design stuff that they did. I mean, just people that are getting ready for them. I mean, every meeting room is going to have to be paying attention to what's going on, because the looks they give you, the way they come from, they got a free defender, and they only brought 4. I can't even tell you how hard that is in the National Football League to do. They only brought 4. Technically, that's not a blitz numbers-wise. But the slot defender ends up getting a free hit on the quarterback. And it was almost an interception. It was as much as I have seen them do stuff all year. And I don't know if it was so much more for Jacksonville or everybody who's coming down the road. You might want to peek at this.
Now, Arthur, nobody said it after this game. All the defensive guys actually said they're not satisfied, still a lot of work to do. But I think maybe how close that Dallas game was, and this was a similar record, similar type team that, we wanted to talk about it being a trap game. The Steelers wanted no part of that, obviously. Do you feel like the defense was kind of unleashing maybe their aggression on the Jacksonville Jaguars yesterday?
Yeah, I definitely feel like they were. I feel like they've done it the past 2 weeks, honestly, when you look at what they did against Cincinnati. We know how talented this defense is. And we said early on in the season, the biggest thing that they kept showing was miscommunication on the back end that would, create these big time plays against them. Now, these past couple weeks, they've minimized that a lot. And now you're seeing them play a lot faster and being productive. And Merril hit on it, man. The 2 things that we love as a defense, the green dog is amazing because it makes you not have to cover these running backs. It makes them have to protect, and that's not what they want to do. And as a linebacker, you want to rush. So that helps out. But the simulated pressures is what he was talking about as well, where it appears to be a blitz, but when you stop the tape, it's only 4 guys rushing. The Steelers have been doing that a good amount this year, and because they have been so successful rushing the passer and blitzing the passer, the simulated pressure, it looks just like a legit blitz, and it makes offenses speed up, or you get free rushers, which should never happen when it's only 4 guys rushing. That combination is what has really been able to provide a way for the Steelers to not only create hostile environments, but to create turnovers. We saw the 4 interceptions they had yesterday. 2 of them were based on those simulated pressures like that, man. And to me, when I see the way that they're able to move around and just disguise things and go from pre-snap, post-snap, I mean, it's beautiful. Terrell Edmonds, the second interception he had, he's playing a basic cover 3 as a hook curl defender, but he's doing it out of a 2-shell look where, as the ball snaps, you're thinking, oh, he's a deep field safety. And no, he's just going to sit there and wait till the play progresses and get right to where he needs to as a hook curl defender. And the quarterback hits him right in the face with the ball. It's things like that that have really made this defense come alive, and I'm excited to see what else they can do as this thing progresses.
All right, Matt, I don't want to dog on Jacksonville, but when you look at the drive chart for them yesterday, field goal, of course, they got an early start, but then 3 punts, 2 interceptions, 3 more punts, 2 more interceptions, and then they turned it over on downs. The Steelers had Tyson Alualu back for the 2nd straight game, and also Mike Hilton was finally back in the lineup. What did you see from this group?
Yeah, and these guys mentioned the last 2 games in particular. What I think is really encouraging, and again, they didn't play the Chiefs and the Seahawks. I mean, they played 2 rookie quarterbacks and struggling teams. But this past week, they kept their inside linebackers in the game a high percentage of the time because they were more worried about the run than the pass. But against the Bengals, it was a total opposite. There was no Joe Mixon. They didn't fear the run. They had a lot of defensive backs on the field. And still, over those 2 games, they're allowing 15% conversion rate on 3rd downs. I mean, in this game against Jacksonville, they only allowed 3.8 yards per play. Just to give you some reference, I mean, the Jets were the worst team in the league at 4.4 yards per play, over the course of the year. The Steelers last year, we saw what that offense looked like. That was 4.7 yards per play. I mean, and they kept them to a yard less than what the Steelers averaged last year. I mean, it's dominant performance, and I think it's really encouraging that they can do it a lot of different ways and with a lot of different personnel.
All right, I think a lot of great things to talk about this defense, so I will pose to each of you, what Steeler is your MVP on defense not named TJ Watt? Merril, you're first.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think Bud Dupree has been absolutely terrific. And as soon as I say that, I'm thinking Cam has played so well. Tuitt has just, to me, been unsung in the things that he has taken. I could just keep going, but I mean, I guess I had to select somebody who really has continued to evolve and get better and be great in all phases. Bud Dupree.
What about for you, Moats?
Man, so I love the Bud Dupree pick without a doubt. But for me, I'm going to go with Minkah. I think his ability to just continue to generate turnovers. This is 4th interception now. He has a fumble recovery, a forced fumble on the season. He always seems to be Johnny on the spot whenever a ball is tipped up. He's a playmaker in that standpoint, and the timeliness of it. You look at not only the turnovers, but you think about the 2 game-ending or game-winning pass breakups that we've seen from him on consecutive weeks in the end zone. His big play ability, his just playmaking ability in the secondary, to me, man, across the board has been just amazing. And the fact that, like I said, he's not just doing it in between the 20s, he's doing it in the red zone as well, coming up with very, very timely possessions that not only keep 7 points off the board, but he's taking field goals off the board as well. So to me, that's why he gets the nod.
All right, Matt, who's your pick? Sorry, I should have let you go first, but there are a lot of guys you can pick.
I'll get over it. I mean, Bud, Tuitt, Cam, they all have great cards. I love how those big guys hustle to the ball, too. I'm going to go with Minkah, and the big plays have been obvious lately. But when you look at it, Minkah's, whole, body of work for the year, his ability as a deep center middle defender has a ripple effect on those other 10 in front of him. I often equate it to having a great goalie in hockey. Those other guys can pinch up and be more aggressive on offense. And his presence back there as an eraser of problems in front of him is outstanding.
All right, guys, time for one more break. When we return, if the playoffs started today, we will show you where everything stands right now in the AFC. We'll do that when we return here on The Extra Point.
Some other guys who went down in game and were able to come back or were in position to come back, whether or not we chose to bring them back or not, or Joe Hayden and Juju Smith-Schuster, we'll let their availability during the course of the week be our guide in terms of their game availability.
All right, and Coach Tomlin also said today during his press conference, Zach Gentry is out against the Ravens on Thanksgiving, and Vance McDonald, who has been on the COVID-19 list, he will return to practice tomorrow with the Steelers, and they will also see if he will be available on Thursday or not. So before we headed into the game in Jacksonville, this is what the playoff picture looked like, guys, in terms of the AFC. I know we went over it last week. The Titans and the Browns, they were the 2 teams on the outside looking in. Now we have an updated version of this following all of Sunday's games. Of course, we know the Steelers are still there in the #1 spot, 10-0 now. And the teams on the outside looking in are the Ravens and the Dolphins. And because we don't have to focus on one game at a time, I want to know who is your #1 team in the AFC as we head into Week 12. So, Merril, you can go first.
Well, I'll tell you this. When you look at Kansas City, they're hard to overlook based on what they can do in every facet of the game. But where I'll give the Steelers just a slight edge right now is just how they're playing defensively. They're slightly better, and if they keep getting better offensively, like the stuff we talked about, I can see the Steelers and Kansas City being there in the end. But I'll give the Steelers the edge right now just because of how their defense is playing.
Arthur, what about you?
Yeah, for me, I thought even starting last week that the Steelers had taken over as the #1 team, not only in the AFC but in the NFL. When you talk about the Steelers as a whole, they are a very complete team. The biggest negative we have with the Steelers right now is their running game. Once they get that figured out, which I do anticipate them doing before the playoffs start, that's only going to take them to a whole nother level. But we've seen this team go undefeated right now without having a running game, being very one-dimensional. Whereas with the Chiefs, defensively, like I said, Merril hit on it, man. They are opportunistic on defense, but they're not play in and play out nowhere near as good as the Steelers are defensively. And I feel like the gap between their offense and our offense isn't that big either. So that's why, for me, I lean with the Steelers. And I know people will say, well, since we're undefeated, we should be the favorite anyways. I still don't take that narrative. For me, it took me just watching it multiple times on tape, though, and seeing the Chiefs and how they've struggled in some elements and seeing how the Steelers have improved in some elements. And that was ultimately how I came to that decision.
Okay, Matt, what about you?
I'm very impressed with the Raiders, the Bills, the Colts, the Titans. I think the Ravens are still extremely dangerous. They're an animal backed into a corner protecting their young with fangs out and going to be a dangerous team for sure. But
we got the Wild Kingdom going on.
Oh, see, man. Got fangs, all that.
But I'm going to disagree with these guys a little bit on the Chiefs. And obviously the Steelers can hang and beat anyone. I mean, they're in terms of points per game, only 3 teams are scoring more than the Steelers. No one's allowing fewer points. But my worry with the Chiefs is I think the best way to beat them is control the ball on the ground, eat clock, win the time of possession battle, and then not to blitz Mahomes, to play passively on defense. That's not really the Steelers' style.
All right, guys, just so we are letting our viewers know, the NFL Network, Tom Pelissero, is still saying Thursday's game here at Heinz Field on Thanksgiving against the Ravens is currently scheduled to stay as is, but the Ravens did just shortly ago release a statement on Twitter saying they were informed that multiple members of their organization had tested positive for COVID-19. We know the drill. This is the 2020 season in the NFL, so we will stay tuned and also keep fans tuned in as possible. So thank you to all of my M's for joining me today. For Merril, Moats, and Matt, I'm Missy. That is going to do it for the Extra Point. Don't forget the matchup show this week due to the Thanksgiving game will be taking place on Wednesday at 4 p.m. See you guys then.
What's up, Steeler Nation? It's Stephon Tour. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers official YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on everything going on in the Steel City. Thanks for being the best fans of football. Here we go.